In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to make our player move between different rooms in Scratch. The idea is simple. When the player collides with a door, they'll be transported to a new room that looks different from the previous one. We'll set up floors, walls, and doors, and even add a key to unlock the door before moving through it. By the end, you'll have a working system that lets your game world expand beyond a single room. Let's get started. Before we dive into the coding, let's quickly look at the sprites we've prepared. We have a key with open and closed costumes, a floor and walls with 2 different room designs, a player with simple left and right animations, a door that can be open or closed, and spikes with the short 4-frame animation. These are all set up and ready. So now we can focus on the main part, coding our player to move through doors and into different rooms. Let's start by setting up our player. First, select the player sprite and drag in the When Green Flag Clicked block. This will be the starting point for our movement code. We'll place the player at an initial X and Y position, wait 0 seconds, and then bring it to the front layer so it's always visible above other sprites. Next, let's set up a few variables. Some of these will handle movement, like dx and dy, for velocity, acceleration, and friction. We'll also use variables for animation, like index I, and global variables such as door opened and door number, which will help us later when moving between rooms. For now, just initialize them. Set dx and dy to 0, acceleration to 2, friction to 0.7, and I to 0. Also, make sure rotation style is set to left-right, so our character flips properly when moving. Now let's handle input. We'll listen for the WASD keys. For example, when A is pressed, we stop vertical movement, point left, and adjust dx by negative acceleration. When D is pressed, we do the same but point right and add acceleration. W will move us upward by changing dy, and S will move us downward. This way, we get smooth directional movement for the player. Next, let's deal with collisions. We'll check if the player is touching walls, doors, or the key. If it is, we simply reverse the movement to prevent walking through objects. Then, after collisions, we apply friction to dx and dy, and finally update the player's position. And of course, we need animation. To keep it simple, we'll make a custom block called anims. Inside, we check the current state, left or right. And switch between the matching costumes. Each loop, we change the index, update the costume, and add a small delay. This gives us a basic walking animation. At this point, our player can move, collide with the environment, and animate while walking. Now we're ready to expand this into room transitions. Now let's move on to the door. Doors allow the player to move between rooms, so we'll need to set them up carefully. To handle multiple doors, we'll use lists. We'll create 4 lists, doorX and doorY to store the positions of each door, doorRoom to tell us which room the door belongs to, and doorTarget to define which room that door leads to. Once you're happy with the positions of your doors on the stage, you can plug those values into the lists. Next, we'll set up some variables. For all sprites, we'll create a variable called currentRoom and set it to 1, and another called canMoveRoom set to true. For this sprite only, we'll create an index variable called I. Using these, we loop twice and create 2 clones of the door. Each clone will represent a different door in our game. When a clone starts, it switches to the closed costume and moves to its X and Y position from the lists. Inside a forever loop, we check if the door belongs to the current room. If it does, we show it. If the door matches the one the player has unlocked, we switch it to the open costume. From there, we check if the player is touching the door. If the door is open and canMoveRoom is true, we hide the door, set canMoveRoom to false, and update a variable called previousRoom. This makes sure our logic works correctly when moving back and forth between multiple rooms. We then set currentRoom to the target room, broadcast a message to go to that room, wait a short delay, and reset canMoveRoom back to true. Finally, we reset door open to false so the process can repeat. If the door doesn't belong to the current room, we hide it and switch back to the closed costume. Now let's move back to the player. We need the player to appear in the correct position whenever they go through a door. To do this, we'll create 2 broadcasts, go to room 1 and go to room 2. When the player receives go to room 1, we move them slightly down on the y-axis so they don't overlap if they're pressing the up arrow, and then place them at the starting position for room 1. When they receive go to room 2, we do the same, but move them to the starting position for room 2. Once you're happy with these positions, the player is ready for room transitions. Next, let's set up the key. When the green flag is clicked, the key goes to the front layer and switches to the closed costume. When the player enters room 1 or room 2, the key resets to closed as well. Now, when the player touches the key, we set door open to true, set door number to the current room, and broadcast key activated. Back in the key sprite, when it receives this broadcast, it switches costume to open. This makes the door usable in that room. The floor is much simpler. When the green flag is clicked, it switches to room 1. If the player enters room 1 or room 2, the floor updates to the correct costume. We then duplicate the same logic for the walls. The only difference is that when the green flag is clicked, the walls also move to the front layer so they always appear above the floor. At this point, everything is linked together. The player can move, the doors connect the rooms, the key unlocks the door, and the floor and walls update based on which room you're in. With that, we can test the game and see the system working as intended,